Welcome to the Rock Interview Series with host Thomas S. Orwatt Jr.
Welcome to episode number 106 of the Rock Interview Series. I'm Thomas Orwatt Jr., and today is July 11th, 2024, and we have rock music legend Chris Slade, who was the drummer for many legendary bands, including AC/DC, The Firm featuring Jimmy Page, Paul Rogers, Uriah Heep, and Gary Moore. In this episode, Chris talks about his new record with the Chris Slade timeline entitled Timescape, which is set to be released on July 19th on Bravewords Records. This album promises to be a thrilling mix of original tracks and some of Chris's favorite covers. In addition, we discuss his time with AC/DC, where he was a member from 1989 to 1994, and then again from 2014 to 2016. We also talk about the recording process of AC/DC's classic 1990 release, The Razor's Edge, which features hits such as Thunderstruck and Money Talks. So let's get started. Here is Chris Slade. Hey everyone, welcome to the Rock Interview Series. And look who we have today. We have the iconic, legendary rock drummer, Chris Slade, with us today. Chris, thank you very much for doing this interview. It's really early over here in Buffalo, New York, 7:30. I'm on my first cup of coffee, but it was definitely worth waking up early to interview you. So thank you very much for your time so far.
You're very welcome. My
Yes.
pleasure, actually.
What I want to talk about is you have a new record coming out on this Friday. It's called Chris Slade Timeline is the name of the band. Timescapes. Oh, there it is, right there. Awesome. And
Yep.
yeah, that comes out this Friday. Tell us a little bit about this. This is you've toured with this timeline before, but this is your first record, right?
Yeah, we've been together 12 years, believe it or
Wow.
not. And we were working last Saturday in Lyon, France. And in 2 weeks' time, we go to Italy. We're based in Britain at the moment. And it's a double CD. And there's an originals side, originals CD, and a covers CD. So there's a lot of music, and the covers are like AC/DC, of course, and Asia, Uriah Heep, because I was in that band for like 2 years, and Manfred Mann's Earthbound, because I was in that band for 7 years.
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot of stuff and a big scope, and I was so pleased about the way that the original CD turned out. I've always written lyrics for different songs, mainly Earthbound. I'd never written a melody before. So about 2.5 years ago, I discovered I could write melodies. And so that ended up me writing, say, a bass line, because I've worked with some great bass players. I think I know what a good bass line is. And there were string lines, the keyboard player of Timeline is a guy called Mike Clark. He also sings. And he helped me so much because I don't play a chordal instrument at all. I don't play any instrument except drums, if you call it an instrument. I know people don't, but I do. And he helped me so much because I would go, and I go, sort that out, Mike. And he goes, and he did a wonderful job. I couldn't have done it without him. They were my melodies, but interpreted and made chordal by Mike. So it just turned out 10 times better than I could possibly have imagined. And I would always demo it, the song, and then decide who was going to sing it. We would decide, the band. So like we've got two singers, two major singers. One is the bass player, Stevie G, and he sings the Uriah Heep stuff, Manfred's Earth Band. And Bun Davis does the AC/DC stuff, and then he sort of up-tempo, rocky stuff, if you like. And he sang on two of the songs on the original side, which was Sundance and Back with a Vengeance. And James Cornford was also singing on Back with a Vengeance, along with Bun. So James is an amazing guitar player, and he sings pretty good too. So, I mean, he's truly amazing as a guitarist.
Yeah.
We have people enthralled by his playing. They're very surprised because they're not expecting somebody as good as him with this old geezer, you know. And Mike and James are like, they've been playing together since they were 11 years old, and they're 35 now. So, you know, they've got all that experience. They're really tight together musically. And, you know, it's an amazing band, to be honest, even as I say so myself. And if anybody hears it, they'll hear exactly what I mean.
Yeah. Do you have any plans on bringing this over to North America and touring in North America?
I would love to. We would all love to. It's just visas are the problem. And an invitation from from a promoter. We're working on at the moment on Canada, which may happen, may or may not happen, just don't know. But the States is a little shaky, shall I say. But we can work all the way through Europe, and we have worked all the way through Europe. A couple of months ago, we were in Poland. We go to Germany a lot. We go to Eastern Germany, especially a lot. And Chechnya and all points east. And they love that music, you know, over there because they don't get much of it, you know. So, you know, it's really, we were in Spain a couple of years ago, and we drive everywhere in Europe. I don't like to fly too much. I'm not afraid of it because I've flown all my life, but all the security you got to go through these days is just debilitating, I'm afraid. You got to, you know, go through security for like 2 hours before you get on a plane. And so I prefer to drive in a van with the guys and our equipment in a separate compartment. And I can use my rock or bust drum kit. And it sounds tremendous and it looks tremendous. DW. And it's all black, even the cymbals and the heads, which I think looks quite striking, actually. And of course, I've got my two shoulder height kick drums on either side, which has sort of become my signature. And you can't do Thunderstruck without those. Not as well, anyway. So the boom, boom, it really does go boom, boom.
Yeah.
And we do Thunderstruck, of course, every night, along with a lot more. We do half AC/DC and half, well, now it'll be half originals, perhaps, but half things like Uriah Heep, as I mentioned before, Manfred's Earth Band. So maybe we'll have to do 3 hours instead of 2 hours now with the new album, which wouldn't be a problem because 2 hours seems short these days.
Yeah.
And nobody's disappointed except when we say this is the last one of the night. Then they complain. But people don't leave, and they are entertained. And we do great music. As I say, AC/DC through to Led Zeppelin. And Manfred's Earth Band and all the things I mentioned.
Yeah, well, you've had such a great career playing with some of these bands. You are the only musician on the face of the earth that has been in a band with both Angus Young and Jimmy Page. I mean, that in itself is incredible. I mean, I want to go through your actual timeline and talk about, some of these bands that you played in, but when I was prepping for this interview, and I've been wanting to interview you for many years, but I've always wanted to ask you, like, how was it different playing in a band with Jimmy Page versus playing in AC/DC with Angus Young?
Um, it's they're both great players, Pagey and Angus. You just you got to fit in with people and in with the instruments of the band, whatever band it is. I did a tour with Tom Jones in the '60s with the Count Basie Orchestra. So some people, um, I get trolls on, oh, Slade, he can't swing, he's too stiff. And it's like, come on, man. I played with Count Basie, for God's sake. You think there's no swing there? And it was, it was 35-piece band. And Tom always used a 35-piece band with brass and strings and everything. So if I couldn't swing, do you think I would have that job? And these people don't know what they're talking about because they're not drummers. They're not even musicians. They're trolls, on the internet. And so are you saying then that Angus and Malcolm are stupid for getting a drummer that don't swing or can't play properly? And then they shut up sometimes. I did that to a guy in Australia. He was really nasty towards me. So I had enough. And I don't usually comment at all. So I went to him with that. I said, do you, on, text, of course, do you honestly think that Angus and Malcolm would use somebody they didn't think was all right for the job? Are you saying that Angus and Mal are stupid? And all he sent back was in text. That's all he said. So that's my answer.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
you like AC/DC, but you think they're stupid. Oh yeah, right. Okay, I shall tell Angus.
yeah, they could have picked any drummer in the world and they chose you, and probably because you were the best fit for the band, and they had
Yeah,
a lot of success with you in the band. Razor's
the
Edge, which you played
audition
on.
actually, the audition that I did I was number 100, probably 101, but there were 100 drummers before me, world top players from all around the world, and they would call the guys and say, "Hey, don't tell my band. They're in this band. Don't tell my band, but I want to. I really want to try out with you guys." And they'd try out. They did. So these are top players. I can't say who, obviously, but it was people you would not believe, because AC/DC was considered a great gig to get. And these top professional players, 100 of them tried out, and I was number 100. But I didn't think I would get the gig. I thought I'd messed up completely. And I kept telling myself I'd messed up completely. So I packed my drums up, drove home. I lived an hour away from the rehearsal place, auditions. And I was an hour away. I got lost. And so I called my then wife and I said, I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I got lost." She said, how'd you do? How'd you do? I said, "Not very well. I'll tell you all about it when I'm back there." And so I then completed my journey home, got to the top of my drive, parked up, and my wife came up the drive, and she said, "So you didn't do well. You screwed up, did you?" I said, "Yeah, I did. Let's go down the pub and I'll tell you all about it." So she said, "They've just phoned to say you got the gig." So they phoned before I even got home. There was no mobile phones back then, of course. It was just pick up the old big black phone, at home. So they had phoned before I got home. So I said, "We're definitely on the pub now."
That's incredible. Prior to joining AC/DC, you were in the supergroup The Firm that also featured, in addition to Jimmy Page, Paul Rogers. What was that process like for you getting into that particular band?
It was great. It's any band I get in, it's always great to be honest. It's always a great feeling for one to get the gig, and for two to be working with people like David Gilmour, Jimmy Page, Paul Rogers. I mean, wow, these guys are iconic and the top of their field. It's incredible. But you don't show it. You can't be in awe of Jimmy Page all the time, You can be in awe of his career and his ability, but you're there to do a job. And if you're thinking about that sort of thing, you're not going to do your job properly. So you got to just concentrate on drums and do that. It's the same on stage. You can pinch yourself and say, "I'm on stage with AC/DC. There's Angus up front. Look, he's doing the duck walk. Look, yeah, you could do that." But if you did, you'd fall apart. And there's 80,000 people watching us. Oh yeah, how many? 80? How many? 80,000. Oh, okay. Thank you. You just got to get on with the job, and it's got to be another day at the office. Otherwise, you will fall to pieces. If you have a younger, inexperienced guy on whatever instrument, if he's faced suddenly with 80,000 people, he's going to freeze. I was playing Madison Square Garden for a week with Tom Jones when I was 19 years old. So, I'm so used to it. It's my job. And I'm so used to doing it that I don't even think about it anymore. I'm never nervous before a show. I never have been. And I'm so glad for that. Some people throw up before they go on stage. I've never been at all, "Oh, well, I wonder, oh my God, I'm going on stage in a minute." Oh, again, you got to be just tunnel vision and concentrate on what you're doing and know what you're doing. Even if it's in a pub, know what you're doing, man, and get your rehearsal right, learn your part. And, it doesn't matter if it's 8 people or 80,000. It's the same person playing those instruments, playing the bass, So you've got to, that's what young players, if you like, younger ones, forget. They're all excited. So they speed up or slow down or whatever. They're all over the place. But even in the pub, you've got to have a center for yourself where you go, and that's where you sit. And I learned a lot of doing that through martial arts. I did a lot of martial arts all my life. So you use your center, your gut, to center yourself, and then you can move out from there. So that was a good lesson for me doing martial arts. it taught me to breathe properly, and it taught me to center, and it taught me to think straight. And I did it for years and years, for all sorts, karate and aikido, and then I went to sword, what's called iaido, which is sword drawing, and staff. And I did, for 12 years, I did kyudo, which is Japanese archery. But it's not about hitting the targets. It's about the way, I know it sounds stupid, the way you hit the target and the technique you use to hit it. And it's very complicated. It just seems like, oh, there you go, you pull the bow back. No, you don't. So it's not like Western archery at all, which is about hitting the target. Of course, the masters in Kyudo hit the target every time. They never miss. And they get all the technique correct as well. And that's the thing you have to do when you're a musician. You have to get the technique correct and still maintain your center. So that's my take on it anyway.
Yeah, well, that's great to know that you have, all those techniques and everything. You never have to worry about anyone coming and kicking your ass. That's for sure.
No, and by the way, nobody should ever attack a drummer because look at all the weapons you've got around you. You know, I used to use it in the 60s. That used to happen, the stage getting invaded. And they'd go for the drummer and I'd pick a cymbal stand and go, come on then. And they'd think better of it, you know. It's true. It happened a lot in the early days. People trying to disrupt. I remember once with Tom Jones, we were at the head of what we call the head of the valleys, because in South Wales there's a lot of valleys, and our valley was the Rhondda Valley. Ours, I mean Tom's and mine and all the rest of the band. And we went to the top of that valley once, and curtains opened. Cut a long story short, curtains opened, and from the back of the hall came this beer bottle. Sails through the air in slow motion. I can see it now. In slow motion, turning over and over and over through the air, and it hit the table right at the front of the stage and exploded because it was full. And I thought it was somebody after Tom. You know, I really did, because he was a street fighter. And so I thought, oh, what's going to happen now? And suddenly the whole club, like 200, 250 people, were fighting. I mean, everybody. That beer bottle was meant for the front table. It was like a family feud. And so they just started slamming into each other. It's like a John Wayne movie, you know? Women as well, and grandmothers, all belting the hell out of each other. And I was walking around holding my beer, drinking my beer. I was walking through the crowd, and nobody bothered me because I wasn't a local. And I got to the back of the hall with my pint intact, and this local copper walked in, policeman, and wearing his helmet. And this grandmother on crutches saw him come in, and she said, "What the bloody hell are you doing here?" And she swung at him with one of her crutches and knocked his helmet off. And I decided then to retire back to the stage where it was safer. And I got back there, and the guys were stuffing the meat pies and the chicken in the back of the AC-30 boxes to keep them warm. Stealing the pies.
You probably didn't have to worry about that too often when you played stadiums and arenas, right?
Yeah, that's right. For a start, the stage is too tall, and they got barriers up. Yeah. This was way before any of that. You know, nobody ever played a stadium at that point. I mean, nobody in the music business has played stadiums, is what I'm saying to you.
Yeah.
And that was something else. It was a John Wayne movie,
Oh,
and I think we just left then. We didn't continue with the gig. Shit. We took their pies and left. I was 16 at the time. Why wouldn't I think? I didn't think of the consequences or the how people would feel the next day. It was like I've never ever since seen 300 people fighting.
that's
Um,
crazy.
and they were really fighting. They weren't, unlike a John Wayne movie, it wasn't that funny. It was people just belting into each other with all their
Oh,
force.
oh
That is a sight to behold. You get a little bit what it's like by watching John Wayne fight scene, with loads of people. But
right.
this was really 200, at least 200, 300 people fist
Wow.
fighting. Women,
Yeah.
grandmothers, uh, incredible. That's the sort of environment I grew up in, unfortunately. Miners and steel workers. And that's where it can get like sometimes, especially with family feuds.
Yeah. Yeah. Chris, I wanted to ask you, back to AC/DC. What was it like working with the Young Brothers? Were they easy to get along with, or what type of environment was that like working with them?
They were easy to get along with, or they are easy. Unfortunately, Malcolm's no longer with us. But they are easy to get along with. As long as you do your job um, properly, or to their, to what they think is properly. Um, that's it, and that's all they care about when you're recording or playing a gig. Just do a proper job, and you'll be fine. Um, they when I auditioned, no pressure. They sat. They got two chairs, and they sat on two chairs 10 feet away from my bass drum, from my kick drum. 10 feet. Cliff was over in the corner, and Brian was over in the other corner. And so the two brothers, they looked at me and go, "Okay, Back in Black, you count in." Oh, wow, man. So it's like tick, 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 bang, um, incredible. So no pressure whatsoever. Yeah.
What was it like when you came back to AC/DC? You were with them until 1994, and then you came back for their tour in 2015, 2016. What was it
Yep.
like without Malcolm in the band? How did the dynamics change without him involved?
Well, it's terrible, really. It was Malcolm's band. Everybody thinks it's Angus's band. It's not Angus's band. It is now, of course. But Malcolm was the leader of the band without any shadow of a doubt. And in the beginning, he used to tell Angus, he'd say to Angus, "Well, you go out front and do your thing, man, because, you're a great front man. Go out and do that. And we'll stay back here doing our job." And Angus said to him, he told me this, "Well, you wear the stupid suit then." Angus actually told me that. Um, and, you know, Malcolm was a great guy. I know he had his alcohol problems. I wasn't there then. Um, he was completely off the booze when I joined. Um, and he was a very nice guy, extremely nice guy. I first met him when I was working with Gary Moore. I didn't know who I was meeting, and it wasn't even on my horizon, AC/DC at all. Um, and Bob Daisley, the bass player for Gary Moore, and many other people too, I've worked with him many times, Australian guy, he knew the Youngs. And all he said to me, Bob, was, "Oh, Slade, this is Mal." And that's it. He didn't say Mal from AC/DC or Mal a guitarist or Mal from Australia or any of that. And Malcolm and I hit it off like a house on fire. We were laughing and joking, and and that's without a beer. This is backstage, and he wasn't drinking at that time either. And we really hit it off good. So maybe that was a factor also. But they really did try 100 drummers out. They just believe. I always say people are people. And I don't care if it's Jimmy Page or David Gilmour or whatever. You're either nice or you're not. Simple as that, really. And if you're not, you don't get a lot of work. Especially if you're looking for work, that is. It's different if you're a lead singer, perhaps, or lead guitarist. But any other instrument, you've got to really try to find gigs. It's really difficult, as I'm sure you know. People say to me, they think it's easy. They think, one guy said to me once, decades back, he said, "Your career, you've done a few different things." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, why did you choose those people? Why didn't you join Led Zeppelin or something?" It's like, I won't even start to explain, mate. You obviously do not understand anything. Yeah. He thinks I could just go up to somebody and say, "Excuse me, Mr. Page, I'd really like to play drums." Well, we got a drummer and he's pretty good, really. I don't think so. Could you leave your name in the nearest wastepaper basket? It's like this guy had no idea. He thought I could just, and he thought musicians just walked into a job and that was it. I had no idea you got to pay your dues. You got to get asked for a start. It's like us like Timeline trying to come to America. You got to get asked first. We'd love to come. I used to live in the States at one time. I got a green card, but unfortunately the guys don't. So we got to go the visa route. So it's, some people just do not understand. You can't just go to the Foo Fighters and say, I'm a guitarist. I like to be guitar in the Foo Fighters, please. It's like some people's ideas of the music business, and it is a business, and it is a mean business, to quote a Firm album.
And were there times where you were asked by other bands to join that you declined or didn't think it was a good idea?
Well, maybe I was keeping this for the book, but I auditioned at one time and got the job with 10 years after. And I wanted to play, it's just after Tom Jones, I think. And it was 70s, I think. And I didn't know much about him, actually. And I turned it down because I wanted to play with brass instruments. And that was, again, you got to be open-minded. If you're a player, it don't matter where you play, as long as you play. So I turned down that gig. Can you believe that? It would have been incredible. But he said, it's there if you want it. I said, well, thanks, man. But, you sort of advertise yourself as a jazz rock band. And it's more like a blues band. So I wish I had done that, to be honest. I really do. Yeah. Of course.
So you mentioned the word book. So you are working on a book currently?
I am, yeah.
Oh, that's
I
awesome.
have been for the last 55 years. I
It'll be a
always
long
thought
book then.
I'll do it. I'll really get into it when I'm older.
Yeah, you have like at least another 20, 30 years before you have to worry about that, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I'm still waiting to be older, you know. Mm.
Yeah, no, you're doing good. You're looking great. You got it all, man. You got at least another like 30 years left of rock and roll. The last question I have for you, Chris, and I'm sure you get this a lot, but AC/DC currently is on tour right now. And they have a new drummer. Phil Rudd still isn't back with the band, although he recorded with them. Why weren't you asked to tour with them on this current tour that they're on?
Why wouldn't I?
Oh, no, were you asked to tour with them, or why
No,
aren't
I
you on the
wasn't.
road with them?
No, I didn't turn them down. No,
I
they
wouldn't
never
think
called.
so. Oh,
Rock or Bus Tour, people kept saying to me, um, have they called yet? Have they called yet? This went on for months, about 3 months, ever since people found out that Phil Rudd can't tour. So, and I kept saying, look, they are not going to phone. They are not going to phone me. Okay, guys, they are not going to phone. And they haven't phoned yet. And then I was in Switzerland with Timeline, and it goes ring, ring. And it's like, and it's AC/DC, you know. And I was completely flabbergasted because I did not expect the call in 2014 to do the next tour. And I asked I was on the phone for about half an hour to the manager. And at the end of it, I said, I got to ask you, did this call come from the guys? And he said, of course it came from the guys. I wouldn't call on my own and ask you. Everybody asked me to phone you. So this is it. And I said, well, yeah, I'll see you whenever I see you now. Whenever you want me, I'll be there. So I was very surprised by that. I didn't think they'd call me again this time. I don't know why, just sort of feeling it wouldn't happen. I'm the same age as Brian. So, if Brian can be a frontman and sing the way he does, I'm still not too old. I know Angus is what? I think he's 60 something, isn't he?
57, I think.
Yeah, is he? Right. No spring chicken himself, But, the Rolling Stones are 80 odd, you know? Uh, we all rockers, we don't die, we just smell funny.
Well, I think as an AC/DC fan myself, I mean, you want to see some of the band members that have been in the band for a long time. And, you're one of them. I mean, you were on one of their most successful charting records besides Back in Black, Razor's Edge. And that was really, the start of, them going to like the next level again, going from hockey arenas to like stadiums was like, that was kind of the start of all that. And, Cliff isn't with the band anymore. So like, you want to see someone you're familiar with, and right now it's just pretty much, it's Stevie who's been with the band for a while, replacing Malcolm
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Brian and Angus, but you got a drummer and you got a bass player that AC/DC fans aren't really familiar with, and
yeah.
it would be better to have you in the band again.
Well, whatever it is, whether he thinks I'm too old or whatever it is. And I'm still playing with Timeline. As I said, last Saturday I was in Lyon, France, and we haven't stopped working in 10, 12 years. And I know the drummer they've got now, Matt Lowe, because I used to live in California and I knew Matt then. He used to go and play with some friends of mine on a Friday night, professional players. And if they weren't doing their professional job, they would play in a club in Manhattan Beach in California. And they were an incredible band because they were all professionals. They could all sing and play really well. And I used to go and see him because it was and Todd Zuckerman from the band Styx used to be quite regular there because that was the time he lived in LA. Um, so, it was an incredible band. And they were just like you walk in a pub and there's this band. And they were unbelievably good. And he used to play with them when Todd couldn't make it. And so I got to know him because he told me he was with Alanis Morissette. And Jagged Little Pill was just, massive, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And Matt turned down, he told me this story. He turned down the touring with Alanis to concentrate on his studio career as a studio musician. He wanted to be a studio musician. So he turned down the touring. I think he's learned his lesson now.
Yeah, right. Yeah. When you were in AC/DC, you guys were 100% live. You guys didn't like use any tracks for backing vocals or anything like that, did you?
No. Good God, no. Not even the metronome. I used to start the counting with a metronome. I'd have Dick the drum tech. There was a light, a flashing light, and at the start of a song, and he's a drummer himself, so he understands this. At the start of a song, he would give me the click light, and it would be click, 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 and then I'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, and the tempos of the songs were always set by Angus and Mal. Nobody else. So again, those trolls are saying he plays too fast. The tempos were set by Angus and Mal, and I played those tempos, and I keep time pretty good. It didn't deviate. I finish in the same tempo as I start, and always 1000% set by Angus and Malcolm, and now Angus, of course. So, conductors of orchestras, they keep a metronome in their pocket, and it's clicking away, and they know what the next song's going to be, and they've had it preset, and they just count in with the baton,
Yeah.
And it's in time, especially TV conductors, TV program conductors. That's what they do. That's the trick they use. So I sort of took that trick and made it into a light. I sort of invented a light metronome. They've got them these days. They didn't have them back then. So me and Dick invented one. And it worked really well. And it was just a pedal switch. And then Dick would dial in the next tempo, and he'd push the button for me to look down and see it.
Pretty unique idea. I mean, it's the thing nowadays, so many bands, especially the legacy bands, are depending on backing tracks. I mean, you've heard it. I mean, there's some bands that even lip sync and stuff like that. And I always thought AC/DC was never a band that would ever do anything like that. Yeah,
they'd never do that. When they record, I'm sure they still do it. They record everybody in the same room. Everybody, the drums in a drum booth with glass in front and everything. With so you can see out and see the band. Brian's in a booth over there, a vocal booth that's got glass in front, so that we can look at each other when we play. And that's the way I do it with Timeline too. We, because the second CD, the covers CD, we played live, but we played it into a desk so it could be mixed properly. And that's the way a lot of people do live albums. So the second side is really a live album, but it sounds like a studio album.
Oh.
Because of that reason, because we played live into a desk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do want to ask you one more question. When you were with AC/DC, the last time you were with AC/DC in 2015, 2016, Brian Johnson had to leave the band, and Angus brought in Axl Rose to
Yep.
finish up the tour. What was it like playing with Axl Rose? And was there ever talk of Axl like recording with AC/DC during that period?
I don't know because I'm not included in those conversations, actually. Um, I think they must have talked about it because Axl requested we do certain songs and like Touch Too Much, he wanted to do. Um, and If You Want Blood. Uh, and he said to Angus at rehearsal one day, "Do you know those songs?" And Angus says, "Well, we don't at the moment, but we will by next week," which we did. And it's tremendous. Touch Too Much is one of my favorite songs of all time. I mean, I bought Highway to Hell when it came out on vinyl in whenever it was, 70 something. And
79.
I just played it to death. I played it and played it and played it and played it. And I thought it was fantastic. And of course, millions of other people thought so, think so too. And my favorite song out of all of them was Touch Too Much. I loved Highway to Hell and I loved all the others, but Touch Too Much ended up my favorite. I don't think Angus and Mann like it very much, to be very honest. Um, I don't know why particularly, but they when I said that to them, they were like, hmm. Oh, by the way, they never talked between each other. They just looked at each other. They'd be playing away side by side, and they'd stop like a rehearsal or something, and they didn't even nod or anything. They just looked at each other, and they knew what each other was thinking.
Wow.
And you'll find that from other people who've said that too. It was uncanny, really uncanny. And it's probably the reason those two guitars worked on record, because
Yeah,
they
yeah.
just looked at each other and did it, whatever it was they were supposed to do. So absolutely tremendous. Malcolm was a genius guitarist, genius rhythm guitarist, the best I've ever worked with in 60 years. There's nobody like him. He can never be replaced. Stevie does a pretty good job, but
What made him so good?
his timing was impeccable. His tone was fantastic. His driving, like driving forward without speeding up, was incredible. Made my job so easy. As a drummer, he was impeccable. Never put a foot wrong. Never. So he was a genius and completely unique player, and he's sadly missed by everybody. Especially Angus, of course, his brother. I mean,
Yeah. I'm glad that
So
Angus decided to carry on without him and keep the legacy going. I mean, that must have been very difficult for him to move forward after
I
losing
think it
Malcolm.
was. I think it would have been. Yes. Do I keep the band going or what do I do?
Yeah.
Um, and he misses him terribly. I'm sure he does. We all do, because Malcolm, in many ways held that band together because of his playing and because of mainly because of his playing, but it all went into everything around the band. They were called many decades ago the greatest rhythm section ever, and he was. It was him that made it that rhythm section, in my opinion. That is. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the rhythm section. I'm saying Malcolm's just the driving force behind all of that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying also that Axl is better than Brian or Brian's better than Axl. And people forget that I'm not saying that when I say Axl did a fantastic job. He's not Brian, and Brian isn't Axl. but he did an amazing job to come in like he did, learn the songs, and do a 2-hour show. I didn't know he had that voice. Honestly, I did not. I'd only heard his voice on Guns N' Roses. So he used to warm up for 2 hours every single night and warm down for an hour. And I know because I was in the room next to him. And this happened every show night. Or maybe every night. I don't know. He'd have to take care of his voice. He had a singing teacher, his singing coach, on tour with him. He was taking this seriously. He said on stage with Guns N' Roses once, between songs, he said, with AC/DC, I went to boot camp. They told me, if you screw up, Axl, you get the boot.
Yeah.
And they would have too.
Wow.
They would have famously sacked him. But he was always on time. He always told jokes and told stories. It's unbelievable when you know the horror stories, isn't it, of Axl Rose? Never once was late. Never once, not even for rehearsal. So it shows the incentive. He had a great respect for Bon Scott and AC/DC because he grew up with that,
Yeah. Yeah. It's also pretty amazing that Brian was able to return back to the stage with the band after what he went
Yes, I
through.
think it's great. I think that's tremendous. As I said, he's the same age as me. A few months, I think, between us. And I know all about that, but getting older and, spring chicken anymore. But I'm still on the road myself. So,
Yeah. All right. Well, Chris, I want to thank you for your time. Everyone needs to go out and get this record when it comes on Friday.
Thank you.
Listen to it. Hopefully you can get to North America. I'm pretty sure it'd be pretty successful, with all the bands you played in and playing music from there. It is right there. Playing all this, playing your originals, with the stuff that you played in AC/DC with Uriah Heep, with the Firm. I mean, that sounds amazing to me. Yeah. Thanks again. I appreciate it, Chris.
All right, mate. Thank you very much indeed for your time. And, I love doing this. So thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome. Well, you have a great day. You take it easy
You
and
too.
keep on rocking. We'll see ya.
Okay. Bye-bye.